Michel Foucault, in his book Discipline and Punish, uses the strict methods of the Maitreyi prison colony as the benchmark for his theory that the disciplinary form at its most extreme is the best way to create ideal workers and individuals to better society. The prison served as an instrument of perpetual assessment by deploying methods of permanent observation so that every aspect of the inmates' lives was monitored and consciously judged. Meanwhile, Yorgos Lanthimos' The Lobster is a disturbing dystopian dark comedy set predominantly inside an institution where single people must find a partner. They are monitored constantly as they live everyday lives in the confinement of the hotel, with the goal being to help them fit into the strict society in an obedient and unquestioning manner, or as Foucault would say, to normalise them. The observation and controlling of everyday lives in the hotel is akin to the system of Maitreyi, while the film deploys various methods that mirror Foucault's idea of normalising society and removing individuality. The characters in The Lobster, as is shown in the bizarre acting performances throughout, particularly by Colin Farrell, speak distinctively in bleak, expressionless tones that Octane describes as passive, and highlight the lack of individualism in the film's strict dystopian society of, as Octane states again, emotional deprivation. This mirrors the language Foucault uses to describe the goal of disciplinary methods, stating that the prison's task was to produce bodies that were both docile and capable. The society in The Lobster is one full of these docile people without agency, with the hotel's goal being to make outsiders more capable of slotting into this society. While Foucault speaks of prisons where people are taught the art of power relations, the facility in The Lobster likewise teaches its inhabitants of their place as pawns with no real freedom against the way things are. In this scene in which David is interviewed, he is positioned alone in the frame for the full scene, with no music playing and the camera never moving. The effect of this is to create an uncomfortable atmosphere that emphasises the lack of compassion or individuality, whilst also highlighting how alone and isolated David is. The mise-en-scène of the generic decor in the facility, along with David's plain and generic clothes, just like everyone else's throughout the film, again highlights this lack of individuality and how the institution promotes uniform order and the idea of normality. Foucault states as a key part of his disciplinary theory that, on entering the colony, the child is subjected to a sort of interrogation as to his origins. This scene mirrors this idea by taking the form of an uncomfortable and revealing interrogation, where the subject is sat on the spot and personally questioned in order to both analyse and dehumanise and demean them, for their, as Foucault says, very sad existence. Heine Mackie states that Foucault considers confession as an obligatory verbalisation of truth, and a procedure of moulding oneself into a subject. This emphasises Foucault's idea, and therefore this scene, as a key part of the dehumanising process of normalisation within these institutions that turns people into faceless objects. In this similar scene in which David meets the manager in his room, the camera this time very subtly zooms in to create an undertone of dread and hopelessness around David's situation. Foucault believes that submissive subjects are produced and a dependable body of knowledge built up around them, while these scenes that the film lingers on exemplify this in their uncomfortable and revealing nature, as David hopelessly and awkwardly sits through the questions. Ultimately, Foucault's focus on creating, as Dortzweiler states, an alternative depiction of education as a critical political practice, is represented in The Lobster as people like David are dehumanizingly educated to be more obedient, with the tone of the film emphasizing the disturbing and inhumane nature of this theory.